So, Alcoholics Anonymous, you claim your program enhances your members' lives. Well, let's compare my experience of what your people were like in the meetings versus my longtime non-AA life. And we'll see who has the better protocol for recovery. Within my first 4 episodes, 3 explained how to get through the first 3 phases of alcoholic recovery: the 5-day acute initial withdrawal, the second phase that usually lasts to the 30 to 45 day mark, and then the road to 6 months sobriety. And it is about at this 6-month mark when you seem to be an entirely different person from that prior lush who spent his days either heavily intoxicated or recovering from it with daily withdrawals. I do still remember the life of an alcoholic, although it seems like a play that was written not only on a different stage from where my life is now, but was performed on an entirely different planet. I never was a day drinker during work, at least I can say that to my credit, but it was nightly in huge abundance and for years. During my 13-year partnership with John Barleycorn, the last 9 progressed from the moderate level alcoholic to the late stage. In the final years, I was putting away 12 to 15 beers a night. In the mornings during the final phase of my addiction, I would wake up with vertigo and light nausea. Breakfast was never a thought. The hangover was overcome by Gatorade and several cups of coffee. I still recall the feeling of vertigo that lasted through the morning on the elevators in the hospitals I worked. Later, I'd have a half a lunch and then fight the lethargy through the afternoon until I punched out on the way to the liquor store to do it all over again. Weekends during that final year were nothing but continuous drinking. Usually 2 cases killed by Sunday night. There were many times I felt tiny needles in my liver and kidneys in those late years of the addiction. I would drink until I passed out on Friday night, start again when I awoke 4 or 5 hours later, and pass out again the following afternoon. Drink, pass out, wake with dry heaving, and repeat the cycle until the alarm on Monday morning. That was my weekend in those days of alcoholism. As I said in the previous episodes, I went through the first 3 phases of recovery alone, and continued on my solo trip to the 2-year mark, where I say you can declare cure from the addiction, because your neurochemistry has completely rebalanced at this point. Don't be fooled. You can reignite the addiction if for some fool reason you find it a brilliant idea to contact John Barleycorn again. But the 2-year mark was when I started saying, I used to be an alcoholic, but I'm not anymore. There was a point at the 11-month mark of sobriety when I went to 2 AA meetings. 2 meetings in 2 weeks at 2 different locations. I wanted to see if there was anything that the program had to offer. It's true I was already a different person who couldn't believe I lived as I just described, but I still had episodic periods of emotional upheaval, periodic panic attacks, and some cravings. None of these symptoms were nearly in the magnitude as they were at the beginning of recovery, but they were still there. And more than anything, I felt suddenly I was living in a world which I wasn't familiar with. I seemed detached from people, agoraphobic at times, with on and off depression. These symptoms are very normal until one reaches that 2-year mark. My brother had a long history with Alcoholics Anonymous from his former alcohol addiction as well. He is 20 years clean. He left AA well over 15 years ago. He had described their cult-like mentality, very low success rate, and rigid doctrine pontificated from members and sponsors who screamed if you ever walked out of their doors, you were doomed to relapse. And this was certainly true in my 2 meetings. The senior members and sponsors had been at AA for 10 to 20 years, and they generally came to meetings 5 and 6 nights a week. I really couldn't believe it, for I still had episodic symptoms of the protracted withdrawal stage that lasted the end of those 2 years, and I seemed to be doing far better than those I saw sitting in the circle. I couldn't fathom why they kept coming with such frequency. Their protracted withdrawal had ended years ago, for some of them decades ago. Their physiology should have been operating completely normal by now. Then I noticed their new habits developed in the rooms. They constantly injected sugar and caffeine into their systems. They rushed outside at every interlude to burn 2 cigarettes. None of them were on an exercise program. Many, with years of sobriety, were a reflection of myself in those first 30 days of withdrawal, exhibiting jitteriness and unrest. And then came story time. One by one in the circle, people rehashed how terrible their lives were under the severe influence of good old buddy JB. And I've stated that this could be a healthy tool in the beginning of recovery. But again, the senior people were years and decades clean. It was very apparent they were living in the past, a dark Groundhog Day, awakened every night when they walked through the doors. One story caught my attention. There was a man about 30 years old who told the group of his experience of going to a party with friends the night before. He stated the day of the event, he woke up, fell to his knees, and then chanted the Serenity Prayer. Then he went to an afternoon meeting before the party. He went to the party for a few hours later. Then he came back, went to another AA meeting, after which he called his sponsor. He finished the night with another rendition of the prayer. This man was 2 years clean. I was very reclusive that first 2 years of sobriety. But before that AA meeting, I also went to a party at a clinic owner's house. My experience wasn't nearly as dramatic as that other young man's. My new drink was a soda water with 2 limes. I would look at the bottles of beer, and yes, I felt cravings, but they were very mild. I had 11 months of sobriety by now. I had withstood the early stages of recovery, which included continuous and intense cravings most of the time. But now the mild ones would come, last an hour, and pass. The party wasn't nearly the big deal as this other young man's because I didn't make it a big deal. The fact that he would have to go to 2 meetings, call a sponsor, and spend the day in an almost panic state about a social event at 2 years clean is simply ridiculous. But that's what AA had done to his mindset. Then in my mentioned item of note was the people in the rooms were not people who owned internal tranquility. That was obvious in their faces. I expected that from the newer members to sobriety, but not the ones with years distant from Mr. Barleycorn. It's like the cookies and coffee were life jackets they clung to in order not to disappear under the water. They lived in this constant dwelling of this ghost life of the past. I saw nothing mentally healthy about these meetings for the people who were past those initial stages of recovery. The other thing I noted was how AA had become the senior members' entire lives. The long sober were now sponsors. They belonged to regional and national committees. One told me how his recovery led to his divorce, for his poor spouse no longer had anything in common with him. He was at AA almost every night. He couldn't go on a weekend trip unless the rooms were nearby. He went to national conventions without his wife, as why would she go? She wasn't an alcoholic in the past, but all must be sacrificed for sobriety. Isn't that right, AA? What a toxic mindset. And that is my point. You don't have to sacrifice anything or anyone for sobriety, minus your ended friendship with John Barleycorn. The recovery, once you pass the 2-year mark, should be one of continued enhancement in every aspect of your life. You are the dead reawakened. The world is now a different place. You look through clear eyes, not the haze of your former addiction. And it doesn't even take until the full 2 years to gain a better existence in all of your planes. The emotional symptoms will still be episodic until then, but you are recovering more and more with every passing week and month. By month 11, when I was sitting in those 2 meetings, I would have noted to the group that I did have these emotional, frantic episodes at times, but I also had many periods of peace. Sure, I realized all the stupid things that occurred in my life due to my association with good old Mr. B. Of course I recalled face planting in the afternoon on the street, one fine day in Bavaria, as I stumbled home from the bar, and trying to explain the knot on my forehead the next day, the chaotic relationships, one-night hops-induced stands. But I wasn't going to dwell on it every night. When you're an alcoholic, you hang around other alcoholics, which creates a merry-go-round of never-ending drama and chaos. You don't have to keep reliving it over and over. And now, at 16 years sober, I think about the ones who told me they had a decade or 2 of sobriety and were still sitting in the rooms. At year 5, I was sitting in a coffee shop, finishing the first draft of my guidebook to recovery. A 12-step reference was sitting on the table as well. A woman, who was a tribe member of AA, saw it and walked over. Ah, she thinks, another who knows a secret handshake. She asked me how long, meaning how long off the bottle. I told her 5 years. She asked me which house I went to. I replied I didn't do AA, in which the rant followed. AA isn't just about sobriety, AA teaches you how to live. I noted this brief conversation in my final published chapter, how AA hijacked this person's life. After all, she wants to be sober too, but she was dragged into the cult and now the cult is her existence. What is my non-AA life like? You be the judge. I engage in heavy physical fitness on a regular basis. I fill my days with emotional enhancing techniques as well, such as yoga, tai chi, and meditation. When I have cravings, they're very transient and mild, and at 16 years, I rarely even have them. I don't think about my past life with John Barleycorn. That was a different person. I'm too busy living in the present in my holistically healthy lifestyle. And in that present, I have taken months off to trail walk in the wilderness. There is no path in the Sierra Nevadas that I don't know. I've been through the mountains in western Montana and Alaska as well. In 2010, I hiked 2,007 miles on the Pacific Crest Trail, bowing out at the end because of an injury. In 2012, I returned to mile zero and this time crossed the entire 2,660 miles. I trained in my longtime art of Muay Thai in Thailand for 8 weeks. I completed a Tough Mudder in 2014 at 46. I've roamed Eastern Europe and Asia with hundreds of pictures of the various temples and castles. I know what Machu Picchu looks like after a 4-day trek to it. I became proficient in my craft of manual techniques in the genre of physical therapy. I've given seminars and lectures on the subject to the younger therapists. Even though mostly retired from that field, I still advance my skills and knowledge as much as possible. The day I pass, I hope there's an open book on my desk about the matter. And I've written 5 books. One is on this very subject, and another's how to reinvent your life and all your planes. The Pacific Crest Trail Trek also became a written memoir of forgiveness to all from my turbulent past. Under the eyes of a shepherd I found after almost 6 months of walking in his terrain, whoever he may be. I've also set up several YouTube channels and associated blogs and podcasts, which is what I focus on the most in my early 80% retirement from physical therapy. I've also become proficient in investing, which only serves to enhance my life. I no longer have chaotic friends from my old life. I had to eventually give them all up. With that came the expulsion of their drama as well. Today, I only associate with positive people who believe in constant progression of self. A few were prior substance abusers as well who also left it. They are progressing their lives on all planes as well. They don't sit in the rooms either. AA will teach me how to live? The above description of my interaction with AA would be a prime example of how not to live. I imagine this episode will fall on deaf ears of the long-standing cult members. But for those of you who aren't indoctrinated yet, ask yourself, whose life looks better? The one sitting most nights, smoking cigarettes, guzzling coffee, and constantly regurgitating their past while they label themselves as diseased and sick? Or mine? It is astounding to me that AA continues to state that they help so many. The fact is, most who start AA fail. They fail, and it doesn't matter what your reasons are for this majority failure rate. If AA was a business, they would be out of business. That's it, and that's all. But for the minority who, quote, succeed with your protocol, they may be able to abstain from alcohol, but how much you help them remains a great matter of debate, for they aren't living like I am. They are sitting scared, afraid to leave your rooms and your cult, and that AA isn't healthy at all. And if you want some more reasons why AA is not a healthy way to advance to recovery, check out my playlist card at the end of the video. And check out my own guidebook on how to recreate your own life on all holistic planes. Reinvention of Self, How to Change Your Life and Being Forever. Link is on the video description as well as the channel page banner. And remember, you made the contract, so keep it. Be sober at sundown, and I will see you at the next sunrise.